Something has become quite common when we're shopping. We are making the purchase and then something comes up on the card reader at the store. Would you like to donate to this cause or round up to the nearest dollar with the money going to a nonprofit? Maybe the cashier asks us that question. And of course, the same thing happens online. Right before we hit purchase, the website says, oh, wait, before you go, would you like to make this donation to this nonprofit? It's called Check Out Charity. And today we're going to check out Charity with Dr. Ruth Hansen. And Ruth, what a delight to have you back with us on the First Day podcast from the Fundraising School.
Oh, thanks, Bill. It's always such a pleasure to join you.
To remind our audience, Ruth is an alumna of the Indiana University Lilly Family School Philanthropy, and she now serves as associate professor at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, where she has founded and leads the Institute for Nonprofit Management Studies. And Ruth, your academic work and your life as a practitioner combined as a pracademic has led you into this topic of Check Out Charity. What are you finding?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's very funny. We when we started this study, it was part of a larger study, and we thought, well, let's just we have the funding. Let's just ask people about their giving habits at the checkout, because of course I've been asked at the checkout. You've been asked at the checkout. I think probably most of us have. But the only reports we could find about the outcomes were really coming from the retailers themselves. And it's quite a bit of money raised. In 2022, it was $750 million just from the largest campaigns. We said, you know what, though? That's not being funded by the retailers. That's being funded by you and me and everybody who says, sure, round up. And so we wanted to survey the American public and ask, so do you engage in this and how much? And what we found is yes. Just slightly more than half of Americans said, yes, I do give regularly.
Well, Ruth, that's a fascinating finding. I'm going to synthesize that with some research from our colleague, Dr. Patricia Snell-Herzog, who looked at giving patterns of donors and found out that nearly half give so impulsively, not thoughtlessly, but right in the moment. Asked, the answer is yes. It sounds like your finding is very similar to what Dr. Snell-Herzog has found in donor behavior as well.
Oh, I would agree very much. In fact, my co-author, Lauren Dula, and I like to refer to this not so much as Check Out Charity, but as impulse giving. So very much along those same lines. And we like that in part because there is some research around impulse buying. And we think that, yes, this kind of giving is in the moment. It's because you're asked. Some people have suggested that we can use that in a way to kind of rationalize that we did buy those luxury chocolates. And so now I'll also do something good by, rounding up or adding $1 on at the end for somebody else.
Ruth, those are the great introduction to the explanations. So did you do a quantitative study, ask people to fill out a survey? Did you interview folks? Because, of course, where my mind's going, what are some of those comments that really jumped out to you, that really drive home why people are doing this?
Sure. Well, we can't so much answer the why. It was quantitative. It was part of a study of 1,400 people in the United States. And from that, we found that 53% said that they had given at the checkout in the past year. Of those, by far the most popular method was rounding up. About 85% reported rounding up. Another 69% said, well, I just added on an additional amount. And you know how sometimes you'll see like hearts or shamrocks that they'll say, okay, buy this, put your name on it. We found that only about 1 in 5 reported having done that. And again, we don't know if this is because of choices that the retailers are making, or if it's because this is what people found, sparked their impulse, right?
Did you see any differences in demographics? Men versus women, more seasoned citizens can't say older, more seasoned citizens as opposed to younger, differences in generations, racial differences, worldview, economic class, any of these things jump out because nonprofits are like, more than half of the people at the store or online are donating. That sounds like a lot. Who are these people?
Yeah, so we definitely did see some demographic differences, and some of this could be driven by the different kind of retailer, possibly. But we did see that women were much more likely to say yes. We also saw that people who are married or divorced were more likely to say yes. Now, so far, that's actually tracking with the demographics of what we would call more formal giving, giving directly to a charity. But then we start to see some differences. So we know, for example, that the median annual gift for people giving to households giving to charity is about $850. The median annual gift reported through the checkout, and this was asking people how much did you give last year, was about $50. So smaller, but a lot of people. With formal charity, we know that as you get older, you're more likely to give, right? So whether it's seasoned or older adults, people who are 65 plus are more likely to be donors to charities. What we found with the impulse giving is it wasn't so much that there was a certain age more likely to give, but if you were in that bracket between 50 and 64, so kind of like approaching retirement, you were less likely to give, which I thought was interesting. It could be that people are just thinking, oh, I need to have that nest egg. I'm not sure what it is. The household income made a difference too. Obviously, with formal charity, if you have more like higher income, you're also more likely to give. What we found with giving at the checkout is the most popular income range was 35,000 to 99,000. So really very much more of a middle income, you know? And we also know that if you are giving directly to charity, there's that positive correlation. If you have higher education degrees, you're more likely to give. What we found from this survey is that if you have higher education, you're marginally less likely to give at the checkout. So it may be that this is capturing a different kind of giving, that this is capturing demographics that kind of complement what we see for people who make gifts directly to the nonprofit organization.
And there are a lot of consistencies in your new findings with what you and others have known historically to be true about charitable giving on average. And again, when we talk about any of these data, we always talk about you're going to know somebody that does not meet this description because, again, these are averages that are baselines from which we can work. But in terms of this finding, boomers more than other generations. Well, we know boomers average the highest amount of household giving annually every year. Women more than men. Yes, our research from the Women's Philanthropy Institute would say, not surprised. There's other research that backs that up. What I also want to call attention to here, though, was the income level, the 30,000 to just under 100,000 being more predominant than others. We have these so many research studies out there saying what percentage of households give and how much do they give? And do these smaller gifts show up in Giving USA? The answer is they don't.
Yeah.
And so does this help us understand the potential of fundraising for our annual fund for folks under $100,000 that perhaps we're not approaching because we have such a focus on mid-level and major giving? Or is that a stretch too far?
In terms of what this looks like for charities, obviously this would be working through retailers, right? And so you'd have to think about, is there a retailer in your area that is a natural partner for your cause? If so, then I think you want to this isn't the time to start building those community connections. This is very much an impulsive kind of thing. You want people to already have some familiarity with what you're doing. When we asked people the last time you donated this way, how familiar were you with this charity? We found that 57%, so a little over half, said somewhat familiar. Another third said very familiar. So knowing who your charity is, there was about 12% who said not at all. And so obviously they probably have some different reasons for giving. So I think this kind of goes back to what Booker T. Washington said about one of the great rules of fundraising is to make your work known. And that way, when people see that ask, whether it's directly from your organization or it's at a checkout, they're in that mood to say, yes, I trust this. I trust this organization.
And we are always creating awareness for our nonprofit organization and hoping that as people become aware, they move closer to us and eventually become donors. And this research from Dr. Ruth Hansen is showing how that can happen when we partner with a retailer, either in person or online. Ruth, I wonder, I just have to think there's another important lesson here. People give when they're asked. When people give, it's because they've been asked, almost always, not 100% of the time, but nearly 100% of the time. And it would seem to me this would be an important reminder that, of course, we need to concentrate on our mid-level donors, our major gift donors, but we're leaving out the base level donors at our own peril. In my view, the findings on Checkout Charity show these folks, less than $100,000 household income, they are interested in donating. In fact, there was a recent survey commissioned by the Associated Press at the end of 2025 that found that of people with household incomes of $60,000 or less, more than half of them are donating to charity. Are we asking them? Shame on us if we aren't. And your data show that when asked, many of them will donate.
Bill, earlier you had asked me about the demographics, and I had responded as far as who said yes. But there's also the issue of how much did people give over the past year. And we asked them, just to estimate how much they had given at checkouts over the past year. And here we did find that there were some racial differences in that people who were Black or African American gave on average about $100 more per year at the checkout than other people who gave at the checkout. Now, we don't have the context to understand, is this like complementing or substituting for gifts that are given through charities? We're not sure what that means, but it was something that definitely stuck out to us.
And it's an important reminder to be as inclusive as we can when building our donor database. Just the morally right thing to do, but also to show there's a wonderful opportunity to expand who is donating to our nonprofit organization as we use many different methods, including Checkout Charity. Dr. Ruth Hansen, thank you so much for sharing these findings with us as nonprofits think of all the many ways that they can grow fundraising revenue for their organizations.
Thank you so much, Phil.
And in our course on fundraising from the business sector and in also principles and techniques of fundraising, we talk about Checkout Charity. And again, the person has their credit card out, their wallet, their purse is open, the cash is coming out, whatever the case might be. It's that point of purchase request. I have some money going to the retailer. What's a little bit more for the nonprofit organization? Same thing online. I'm ready to make a financial transaction. Why not include the charity in that? And we're just seeing this more and more. And so look for those opportunities to partner. And it can be a big corporation, like we see in some of the web transactions. It can be your local family-owned business as well, and all those proprietors in between. Those two courses I mentioned, by the way, are two of the more than 24 that we teach, leading to 5 different certificates. We're in about a dozen U.S. cities now in person. And of course, online, anywhere across the world. We have our custom training that we can design just for you. We have quarterly webinars and these weekly podcasts. All the information in our textbook, Achieving Excellence in Fundraising. Go online to go.iu.edu/TFRS for the Fundraising School. Grateful for our producers today, Mike Anthony and Jennifer Boffman. I'm Bill Stanczykiewicz. Now you are more fully informed on this first day from the Fundraising School.